Hey y'all, and welcome to Shade in the City. It's your girl Treese here, and of course, we are here to get into Friday's episode of Beyond the Gates, season 1, episode 63. So, if you guys have not already, please, on my BTG Shade Squad, y'all make sure y'all hit that like button. And for all those who are not already, please go ahead and subscribe because we are a whole vibe over here, okay? But yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to all of the members. I appreciate it, y'all. We had a great fun live on Thursday night. So for all of those that are interested in joining on that fun, every Thursday at 9 p.m., make sure that you go and hit that follow the link in the description box and go ahead and join us. And again, as always, I always appreciate you guys that support the channel. So thank you. I hope everybody had a good weekend. Here's a little Monday special for you. Because yeah, by the time I get this up, it's gonna be Monday. But anyway, so yeah, y'all, let's get into this episode of Beyond the Gates and let's get shady. All right, y'all. So we know where we left off in episode 62. Tracy was supposed to be going to get, or was it 61? One of those last week. We knew that Tracy was going off in the hopes of bringing Sharon back. Okay, so we see Anita, who happens to be looking over menus, as she says, but she just has a folder in her hand. So Vernon comes looking for her, and she's clearly anxious about, Tracy and Sharon coming. Then, of course, they get, hear the doorbell. Anita gets to the door, and it's just Tracy standing there. So she's confused, and she's like, well, where the hell is Sharon? And Vernon was like, oh, and so Vernon asked Tracy about Sharon as, she goes into the house, and he was like, yeah, where's Sharon at? You ain't supposed to be here, but we cooking up a whole meal. Rowena, she in the kitchen, letting it cook, okay? And so she said that Tracy is back at the hotel resting, but they plan to have lunch a little later at Off Eugene's because she's heard great things about it. Okay. And so she said that Anita and Vernon are like, oh, well, we can get up and go. And she's like, I think it'll go smoother if I meet with her alone. And I was like, okay. So because I was like, wasn't the whole point of it? But okay, Tracy, whatever you got to do to get her on board, even though I don't really, like I said, I still got my good eye on you, Tricky Tracy. Okay. So but before she leaves, she tells Anita, look, I'm gonna do my best. But Anita, after she walks out, Anita tells Vernon, I really have a bad feeling about this. So now we jump over to Uptown. We see Pamela. She's on the phone with somebody. We don't know who it is, but we see her trying to encourage them to show up when Danny walks in. So Pamela asked, so Pamela's like catching up with her, and she's like, oh, how are you doing? And so Danny tells her about, Bill's child bride who's supposed to be with child. And so I love how Danny says that, let's not even talk about that. Let's get down to business. I want success. Success is the best revenge. And so she tells Pamela, we need to fill this agency with some of the most beautiful faces. Okay. And so then we see this nice looking young man, Adam, come up, who at first Danny assumes to be a model. But then we really learn that Pamela invited him there because he owns a jewelry company. And she's trying to set Danny up with him because, yeah, she wants Danny to have something to do. Okay. So she's not so obsessed with Bill and Haley because that's her mindset, right? And so he said, look, I'll take you shopping. That's what I want to do. And so Danny said, although that's nice, I'm good. But I'll be in touch. Okay. So Danny scolds Pamela for trying to set her up, and Pam doesn't really understand why because she thinks Danny isn't seeing anybody. And at Nicole's house, we see Kat and Mona, and they are apparently going through some things, I guess, for the church, as far as donations. And Kat says, she says something about not wanting to give people just something to wear, but also something that makes them feel good when they have it on. And so Mona is like, oh, I like that mindset, whatever. And then she goes on to say how, well, I'm not a spoiled rich girl like, some people think. So Mona peeps what's going on. So she's like, well, how did your dinner with the dad, Ted go? And so Kat lets her know that, it didn't happen because when she got there, Pix Six was there to greet her. Okay. And so Mona questions, well, what won't this woman do? Okay. And so Nicole conveniently walks into the room. She's like, oh, what are y'all talking about? And so they quickly try to change the subject. So Nicole's like, I ain't stupid. I'm a little more aware now. There's been enough secret. And so she's like, Kat, what's up? And so Kat does a great job of telling her that there is something that she needs to tell her. But what it is she ends up showing her video of Pix Six going into Laura's hospital room. And so Mona tells Nicole that she wishes she could have identified her. And Nicole tells her it wouldn't matter anyway because there seems to be nothing that they can do about it. So Nicole says that she's not only determined, but that bitch is clever. Okay. And then we see Kat pulling out some leather jacket that was just sitting there. And conveniently, she goes in the pockets and finds some receipts. Okay. But we're going to get back to that. All right. Now, I actually really like this scene. We see Andre. He comes by with coffee for Ted. So Ted explains that, he was scared to answer the door because, he lets him know Pix Six had come through the night before. And so he shares about her antics and explains that, and then unfortunately Kat caught her here as well. So Andre tells him about Kat having evidence that Pix Six tried to unalive Laura. And so Andre is explaining the footage of, how she was going into Laura's hospital room. And he tells Ted that they can't determine if it's her in the video. But Ted already assumes that it's her based on her crazy ass behavior, right? And so he tells Andre that he went to ask Eva about it, and Pix Six ended up being in her room again, being in her room instead. And so Andre was like, I mean, you've been spending a lot of time together lately, conveniently. And Ted said, look, that's because she's stalking me. Only woman I want is Nicole. So he then quotes the Dupree family motto about resisting and, persisting together. And so he lets Andre know that if the Duprees want you on the outside, then basically that's where you're going to stay. And so he talks about how it becomes a cold world, once you kicked out of that circle, and says that, Pix Six got exactly what she wanted because he got ostracized. Andre tells Ted that, he needs to do something to basically pull Nicole in. So Ted doesn't know like what he could possibly do because she's not really receptive of gifts lately. The ones that we haven't ever seen. But I'm gonna give him his things because Ted came through this episode. We talked about it on the live, and Ted came through, but could have happened sooner. But good job, Ted. Okay. So then Andre offers to provide him with some of the photos from and I was kind of with Ted on this, but I don't want to skip ahead. But yeah, he offers to give him some photos from the anniversary party. And I would imagine that Nicole would probably have the same reaction that Eva had, but worse. Anyway, Ted tells him no, thank you. Burn them all, which of course hurts Andre's feelings, but it is what it is. Because I didn't understand that either. I said, Andre, we appreciate you, but sometimes pictures are for joyous moments and memories, and nobody wants that to be remembered. That was a terrible night for everybody, mainly everybody involved. Okay. That's the gift that keeps on giving. All right. So then we see Pix Six. She's at home trying to conceal her helmet, and we see Eva walk into the house. Now Eva spots her, but Pix Six doesn't notice her. Okay. So Eva pretends that she, to not have seen it, and she actually knocks on the door after being like, hey, you home? So Pix Six runs to hide the helmet and then lets Eva in and said, I'm here to get the rest of my stuff like you requested. This was a hard one, y'all. I'm sorry, Princess Diamond Cut, but I did feel for Eva. I did. This was a hard one, okay? And just in general. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Now, so Pick Six said lets her know that she already got her stuff packed up in a garbage bag sitting on the couch. So so Eve was like, well, damn, you got a suitcase? And she was like, well, you could take it in this box, but I'm gonna need you to bring it back. The box. So Pick Six then accuses Eva of being sedity for asking for the suitcase. That she tells Eva to make sure that none of her stuff goes in the box, and said, because I know how you like to admire other people's clothing. I said, the shade. Damn. Um, and then she lets her know that she ran into her sister at Ted's hotel and says that, she has a strong feeling the cat doesn't like her. And it has this crazy cackle. I can't even mimic it. It was nuts. So Eva advises Pick Six that I think the safest thing for you to do is to stay the hell away from Cat, and tells her that she's not over her telling people that she tried to unalive Laura. And Pick Six claims that she was defending her and tells her it doesn't matter because no one has a shred of evidence that I was on that bike. So then we jump over back to Anita and Vernon. Vernon notices the folder that Anita had, and he goes to take a look at it. And I really wanted to know what was in this folder. Did anybody else feel that way? Like once Vernon started trying to sneak and look at it, I really wanted to see what was in that folder because I'm starting to believe that it was deeper than a menu. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reaching. But as soon as Vernon goes for it, here come Anita running in the room, quick, fast, and in a hurry. So, and in my notes say Vernon knows there's something more in that folder, but he goes ahead and plays along with Anita. So he apologizes for making Anita get her hopes up, and he starts talking about how, look, babe, you busy enough with all your charities and everything you got going on. And he said, I realized that, maybe I was doing too much, and maybe this reunion thing is, if this is not what you really want to do. And so she's like, okay, I see what you're doing. You trying to do this, this reverse psychology or whatever. But he was like, I just want you to be happy. I ain't want to cause no type of hurt or uncertainty. And so Vernon, so he asked her, he's like, look, so I'm gonna ask you one more time. Is this something you really want to do? And Anita says, of course I do. And you were the first person to really notice that and see that yeah, this is something that I really want to do again. And so he just applauds her. Vernon tells her to enjoy reconnecting with her past. And then of course they hear the doorbell, and there's Sharon standing there looking Anita up and down, asking what she needs to do to get into the palace. Does she need gold booties or whatever she said? And I said, you know what, Sharon, you and your wig, go ahead. But anyway, so before Sharon got to Anita's, she had met up with Tracy down at All Free Jeans. Okay, Tracy points out to her that their pictures are on the wall and that their songs are in all the jukeboxes. And so, Sharon is like, oh, well, how many demands did the queen make before that happened? He talks about Anita using people, okay, to get her way. Tracy asked her, well, was this a mistake asking you to come? Because you clearly still harboring, feelings or whatever. And so Sharon said it may have been, but insists that, you know what, I'm going to pay you back when I get back to Chicago. And so Tracy tells her that Vernon and Anita can't wait to see her. And Sharon makes it clear that it is not going to be the family reunion that they are expecting. And with a wig like that, you should have known. That don't look like a welcoming wig. That looked like Aunt Ethel about to cuss you out. No shade to anybody that got an Aunt Ethel. I'm just saying it gives Ethel wig. Okay. Tracy tries to tell her there's been enough anger all of these decades, and can we please just move on? And Sharon accuses Tracy of, defending Anita, and says basically that's what you've always done. And she said, I'm not forgetting anything. I don't care what you're doing. So Sharon believes Anita is basically an actress, and she said, look, if I get there and I feel like, there's no genuine regret. And Tracy said, look, Anita has the same hole in her heart that we do. Okay. And so they agree that they were all closer than sisters. And Tracy tries to get her to see whatever Anita did happened a long time ago, and it is time to move on. And she urges her to see what it feels like when all three of them are together again. So I don't know. I guess we'll see, because I don't know about y'all, but I didn't see Tracy at the door behind Sharon, unless it's just camera angles and we're going to see her come from behind or something. Because I was like, why would she let Sharon come over here by herself? But anyway, Drop down in the comments because that's just what y'all do. Okay. Let me know what you think about it. So back at Uptown, Pamela suggests that Danny is, you don't want to move on. And, I think that basically every time something happens with Bill and Haley, you have some sort of reaction and you need something basically to you know, take your mind off that. And Danny's confused. And she's like, why are you out here defending Bill and Haley out of all people? And she said, because Bill and Haley have moved on with their lives. And I said, at first I was looking at Pamela sideways, but then I had to check myself. And I said, you know what? Sometimes you do need good friends to have real hard conversations with you that you don't want to hear. And she insists that, you know what, Danny, you need to move on. And I'm going to send this boy she said, you need to get back on the horse. Okay. And I'm going to send Adam your number. And so finally, Danny tells her that she got a horse and she's enjoying the ride. So Pamela's like, oh, girl. Oh, okay. Let's talk about this horse. Look at that horse. Look at that horse. Look at that horse. Okay, I'm sorry. And so finally, Danny swears her to secrecy, and Pamela asks, well, how does Andre feel about y'all being a secret? And so, look, did anybody see ya coming to my house last night? Okay, that just popped up in my head. Anyway, and Danny said, look, he's fine with it. But Pamela mentions how, I mean, Danny, you fine and you rich, ex-model. Most men would want to, tell the world about that. And so, of course, that segues into Andre and Ted back at Ted's hotel. Andre is offended, of course, for Ted telling him to burn his work. And so Ted's like, look, my bad. He said, look, I appreciate the gesture, but brings up how no shade, Andre, but taking tips and, things from you on relationships probably isn't, you're not one that, known to be like, I mean, you might be certified lover boy, but you're not known to be like Mr. Relationship. So Andre's like, nah, I've been in relationships before. So he's like, can you give me a name? Or anybody. So he said, I got your name, Danny. And so Ted is like, Danny, my sister-in-law, Dupree, Danny. And Andre said, yeah, man, I've fallen. And he said, but she's still getting over Bill. So at this same time, we cut back to Danny explaining to Pamela that her and Andre are not related. Okay. And Ted basically explains the same thing to Andre, right? But she's like, don't say nothing because I don't want Nicole to find out. And she's like, I just don't want her to misconstrue this as some type of betrayal. So Andre has sworn Ted to secrecy. But then admits that, I don't like the fact that I have to be kept a secret. And he says, oh, and he's just going on about his feelings about Danny and said, you talk, and so Ted notices and he says, you talk about her like I talk about Nicole. I was like, and then and he warns him. He said, look, man, he said, you make sure you treat Danny with the utmost love and respect she deserves, because even my plastic surgeon skills won't be able to put you back together if you do otherwise. I just want to say shout out to whoever is our 1800 subscriber. But thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I don't know why this always happens when I'm on this video and I just happen to look at my phone and be like, oh, but thank you guys. Again, appreciate y'all helping us grow and glow and continue to, just get bigger and bigger. So I love it. And now we only got 200 more, which seems like it's not a lot, but it's a lot. But now we only got 200 more and we'll be knocking on 2000's door. So I'm very excited. Anyway, let's jump back into so remember Kat has found the leather jacket, and inside the leather jacket was a parking ticket for a motorcycle without a license plate. So they look at the address on the receipt and they realize that it's close to the warehouse where they got the security footage. Then they find a coffee receipt with the name Cherry C. And so Kat starts connecting all the dots and realized that Pix Six knew about the clothing drive and donation boxes, and it would have been the perfect way for her to get rid of something that she didn't want anyone to find. And I said, private eye. Okay, private eye. So even Nicole gives her things and says, you know what, it makes sense, but she doesn't know if it's enough proof to get her arrested, and says that, she doesn't know whether to be excited or terrified with all the evidence that Kat is finding against her. So Kat finds another receipt to a reboot bin, which Mona can vouch for and said that her and Pix Six were, thrifting there. And so they plan to all head to the coffee shop to see. I thought they were all heading there. Was that not my own understanding that Nicole said she was going to come, or did I miss something? But she said, just let me run in the shower and get dressed. So her and Mona supposedly go out to a coffee shop to see if anybody recognizes or remembers Sherry, Dana, let's pick six. Okay. It's getting to be too many names. Okay. So now Kat and Nicole, and I love that, at the end of the scene, Kat and Nicole are united in taking her down. And I said, oh, what's about time? It was about time, Nicole. You're a little late to the party. So back over at Pick Six apartment, she's telling Eva to get her stuff because she got other things to do. Now, this really, really did break my heart. Eva offers, well, look, I can come back later. And Pick Six tells her, just go. You don't need to be around me forever. And Eva said, but what if I like being around you? So Pick Six, well, now you have better. So you're welcome. And so she then goes on this long tangent about how it was just the two of them even when Alan was there, and she trusted Eva with her innermost secrets. She accuses her of throwing her to the dust to get buddy with the Richardsons. And so Eva reminds her that the plot was always supposed to be about me being accepted as Ted's daughter. And Pick Six said, okay, and now you are. And you can go be around your new kinfolk and tell them how crazy I am. And I said, oh, you heartless. It was, but one thing I gotta give the girl her thing, the women, their things. Amber and Trisha acted the hell out this scene. It was everything to me. So Eva tells her, look, I still, I still want to be here, even if you want me gone. And she admits that she misses her mama. And Pick Six tells her I miss the day you walked out. And tells Eva, you cramping my style. You've been cramping my style since birth. And I said, oh, that hurt. That hurt me. And I ain't even your child. And tells her, go back to your fancy hotel. And then she demands her key back and tells her to get her and leave, okay? And poor little Eva is in tears on her way out the door. But what it was for me, because we always see Pick Six play such a good villain, I love seeing her cry. Even in her villain moment and being an asshole, I love seeing her cry. Like, and show real emotion. Like, it hurt her to do that to Eva. What did y'all think? Again, I'm not team Pick Six by any means. However, I will say the acting in that particular scene was absolute in my eyes. I almost cried. Okay, that it was phenomenal. Okay, now we see Ted get a phone call letting him know that his flowers have been delivered to Nicole, and he writes a very heartfelt message. It was so sweet. And we could tell that it's, starting to break down her walls a little bit. And so I said, okay, well, there's some hope, even though I know there's some of us out here in the comments and the BTG squad that want Nicole to go ahead and divorce Ted. And I will say this, it's not as easy as a bouquet and a note, but we got to start somewhere. But yeah, Ted, you're going to have to work a little harder. It ain't going to be just that. Yeah, you got keep them coming. Keep them coming. You should just already have them on regular rotation. She should walk at that house every day and see a new arrangement at her door. All right. So now, Kat and Mona, they end up at Off Jeans, and she tells Mona that they should have stayed at the coffee shop longer because she was hoping that they would be able to find someone who knew Pick Six. So finally, Mona's like, "Look, girl, I'm glad that you are so active in your CSI, okay. However, she's like, we need more than that, sis. So Kat says, well, I'll have Jacob run a jacket for prints and DNA, and said, well, even if the prints and DNA come back to Pix Six, that just means she came in contact with the jacket at some point. And I said, well, not. So you was watching SVU too? Oh, okay. Okay. Good job, Mona. You and Kat on the same, you know what I'm saying? So finally, and then we see Pick Six interrupt the conversation, and she said, "Oh," and she calls them witches in a coven. I said, "Oh," and she trolls them because basically she knows that they were talking about her. And then the final scene, which was the best, we see Eva sneak back into her mother's apartment with a spare key, something that Pick Six always taught her to have. Okay, and then she steals back, and she steals the helmet. And I said, well, well, well. And that was the end of episode 63, y'all. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the recap. If you have not already, please make sure you hit that like button. Make sure that you guys comment, make sure that you subscribe, and make sure you hit the notification bell. Again, thank you guys so much for, like I said, just continuing to help us grow and glow. I'm excited. Thank you for helping us hit 1,800 subscribers. Let's keep it up. Let's keep going. And yeah, make sure you're following us on all the platforms, the TikTok, the IG, the Facebook, and the Blue Sky, because I'll be live skying. All right. And yeah, y'all, I hope you have a wonderful week. Be blessed, stay safe, and I will catch you tomorrow for Monday's episode of Beyond the Gates. Bye-bye.